Live. Come on. Come on. It's like the old car when you crank it up. You're like, come on. Come on. Out there in the winter. Yeah. Come on. Come on. It reminds me of my Jeep. Although my Jeep has never left me walking. Knock on wood. So, yeah. Those old 6-cylinders from the TJs, they run forever, ever. My neighbor has one. He has a 98. Mine's a 99. And he has an automatic. I made fun of him before I knew that he had an automatic in his Jeep. I was like, "What are you?" I was like, "You don't want to be a rock crawler with an automatic." And he's like, "Oh, I got an automatic." Anyway, he has like 289,000 miles on his Jeep. Never rebuilt the engine.
Wow.
Those things are bulletproof, dude. They're bulletproof. Great, one of the greatest engines ever made.
Good to know.
Like Vance Joseph's defense, bulletproof.
Yeah. Tune into Cecil's Gearhead podcast coming up your way where you find your podcasts. All right.
You think they're ready for this?
Are you ready for this?
Let's do it. All right. 3, 2, 1. Well, Thursday night games are usually pretty interesting, but it's Baltimore and Miami this week in part 1 of the Week 10 preview. And Sigmund, starting with the Ravens side, I guess start with the fire up your old man engines, right? That's what I have to do in the morning. Although I had a 20-minute run this morning, I told you about. Great. But anyway, like fired up with Devonta Freeman. He's still got hair and ass and being productive out there. Maybe a dash to Le'Veon Bell is a what the heck flex. You're seeing Rashad Bateman do more and Marquise Brown and exciting things for Baltimore, especially because Miami is awful.
It is awful. And that's going to be the motif of this game. But see, because I find these things interesting, and I think this whole show in some ways is based on, well, if we find it interesting, you will find it interesting too. Unveiling a new feature for the preview today, which is let's look at the history of this matchup. Let's look at the history of Baltimore Ravens against Miami. Baltimore's actually won, this is ahead 10-6 in the all-time series and has won 8 of the last 9. Included in that is 2 wild card wins. And in the last 3 games, the Ravens have outscored the Dolphins 137-16.
That's bad, right?
That's really bad. 59-10 the last time they played. 59-10, 40-0, and 38-6. Those were the scores of the last 3 times the Ravens played the Dolphins. This one's probably going to fit right in, right? So, yeah, Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, yes. Devonta Freeman, yes. Le'Veon Bell, yes, sure. At least as a what the heck flex. We're not going to see Latavius Murray back for this one. Miami's defense is not good, okay? And their offense probably is not good. You might want to look at the Ravens' defense in this one. This is going to probably be a good night to be a Ravens fan. Probably a game the Ravens don't have to come back and win in the second half.
That's right. Dolphins side, do we know if it's Tua yet? Like, that's
game time decision.
Like, okay, so what? Jalen Waddle? There you go. Jaceki, right? Low end tight end 1. Waddle, wide receiver 2, 3 / flex. Yeah, even if Brissett's in, they should produce enough. You just don't have a lot of confidence. And then, hell, Myles Gaskin, that's the ultimate dart this year, right? It's like playing spin around, pin the tail on the donkey or whatever. It's like just kind of guess. Are you guessing this is a Myles Gaskin week or no?
I'm guessing he'll catch 5 or 6 passes. So at least a flex play, maybe a PPR running back too. Like you said, if it's Tua, you have a little more hope for these passing options. But with Devontae Parker hurt again, Mike Gesicki, and Gesicki's probably the better play than Waddle, just because if there's a strength, even with the injuries they've had. I know they just got Chris Westry back, or they're close to getting Westry back. But you would think that at least this year, tight ends have done pretty well. I think 5 for 45 last week for Tyler Conklin, and that's it. You know, see the note this week for the Dolphins, it was from our man Daniel Jeremiah. He said that some of his buddies in scouting say that there are 10 players from the 2021 draft that would go ahead of the number 1 pick from the 2022 draft. Now, I'm not saying that's true. I'm not even saying that there's anything to that because I haven't done my own research, but I'm just trying to make Dolphins fans feel better about not having their first round pick.
Yeah, you're always trying to improve the mood, Bloom, right?
Yeah.
You're a good soul.
If we're going to spend time together, at least want it to be nice time.
By the way, Matthew says, Sig, just back from a pickup game, and Cecil doing his best Corey Hart.
Yeah.
I just had
my pickup basketball.
Yeah.
I played a good Cecil. I would play really hard defense, really intense defense on the best shooter on their team.
Right.
And I would always distribute the ball. I was a ball distributor.
Okay. Sigmund distributes balls around. That's right. 5:09, 5:10 is when we start Atlanta and Dallas. Who's writing down timestamps? Atlanta and Dallas is up next, and the Atlanta side is kind of easy. Cordero Patterson, Kyle Pitts, yes. And then who else? Going against Dallas. How does Dallas respond, basically? I think I wrote it in the description. Like, how do they respond after they got their ass kicked by Denver? This one's at home again in Jira's world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I don't think Atlanta can necessarily do what Denver did specifically, but Matt Ryan's better than Teddy, and Cordero Patterson is pretty damn good, and Kyle Pitts is better than anybody. Broncos have a tight end. So let's talk about these Falcons. It could be surprisingly robust on Sunday.
Yeah, the Falcons are feeling good. The Cowboys, this is a game that they have to show what they can do to respond. By the way, Dallas, 18-11 all-time in the series. They've beaten Atlanta twice in the playoffs, in the 2 playoff matchups. But they've split the last 10. So this has been a pretty even matchup.
Are you throwing this in for gambling purposes or whatever I have to say?
No, I just think it's interesting. I guess what I'm trying to throw it in for, Cease, is to say that there's nothing unremarkable in the NFL. There's nothing ordinary. Every time teams get together, it's a celebration of the teams, of the history of the teams, and we're adding another chapter to that history. By the way, the last chapter, do you remember last year, Cease, 40-39? This was a Dak Prescott somehow comes back from a ridiculous deficit game. Remember that trend? Well, the Falcons were part of that. 40-39 was the score the last time these teams got together. So that could be really good for fantasy, right? Ryan is passing well. Like you said, after what Denver did, you'd want to run on Dallas, but Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson, that doesn't sound like Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. So I think that you just stick with what Matt Ryan's doing well. It's passing, right? Maybe it's a Matt Ryan week. And then what's the trend here, Cease? You put your best cornerback on Kyle Pitts, Stephon Gilmore, Marshawn Lattimore. That's been bad for Kyle Pitts, but if it's Trevon Diggs, is that good for Kyle Pitts? Kyle Pitts breakout week again. So this could be a Kyle Pitts game. And of course, again, it's going to be a Cordero Patterson game. And Brian playing better. Matt Ryan's playing better. See, so I'm thinking about the Falcons. I'm thinking about Terry Fontenot building that trade value back up for next year. Maybe, like I said, I'm putting it out there before anybody. Green Bay's next quarterback, maybe Matt Ryan.
Doesn't that seem apropos?
It would be.
Fits, right?
Shanahan tree, good. All that stuff.
Yeah. As long as Arthur Blank gives it up, you know what I mean. Like, dude, you gotta let go. You gotta let go. To Michael and to everyone listening right now, whether it's online, on live, whatever. There's your Keanu kiss. As we talk about Dallas, they need a kiss. They had a kiss of death last week against the Broncos. And what about this week? Again, it's almost like, how do they respond?
Right.
On both sides. And did Dak rush back too soon?
Right.
That's a large question mark, even floating around sports radio here in Denver. So is Dak okay now? Because he wasn't really okay last week.
No, and that's the question, right? How much of last week was Dak was rusty? How much was it that maybe he's still hurt? How much was it that they didn't have Tyron Smith? Not a name we say a lot around these parts, Cease, but how many offensive linemen have been more valuable to their team than Tyron Smith?
Not many. Sorry.
Yeah. No. That's good. The silence was perfect. Because the idea is he's a very, very important player. So we'll see if he can play. He's rehabbing. So keep that in mind. But I think this is a game where Dallas is going to want to establish the run. Zeke, it's going to be a big Zeke game. And you're probably going to see Michael Gallup back out there, which complicates things because if they can control, and look, Atlanta's defense is coming on, their pass defense is coming on, but Atlanta's defense doesn't worry us. So if the Cowboys can control this game and do what they've been doing in their wins when their defense has been playing better, then it's going to be a more run-heavy offense. Now you're also splitting the pass offense another way with Gallup, right? Lamb, Cooper, Gallup, Cedric Wilson is still playing a role there. Dalton Schultz, Blake Jarwin's on IR. So I'm not saying to bench your Cowboys, because it's a good matchup and Dak Prescott and this team should respond, but you don't know if it's going to be a big passing outburst. And you mentioned how will Dallas respond. Mike McCarthy teams, when they are beaten by double digits, 61% of the time win the following week. 31% of the time they win by 14 points or more. So that's a good sign for McCarthy getting this team prepared to put last week behind them.
What's the sign for New Orleans? Like, seriously, what is the sign?
Big ass beers. Sorry, Joe.
Something. I don't know.
There's actually a lawsuit about that, Cease. Who owns the big ass beers moniker.
Really? Okay.
You said what's the sign for New Orleans is the first Bourbon Street, you know?
Yeah, of course. Right there, right around the corner from your place down there in New Orleans way. New Orleans, Tennessee, traveling to Tennessee. And Tennessee's hot, man. Tennessee's got that, not necessarily team of destiny. It's probably too early to say that. But, I mean, hey, the way they're playing, battle-tested every week, bring it on. But this week, what kind of test will New Orleans be? They don't have Odell Beckham Jr. yet. Recording this Wednesday morning. There's 3 teams, right, Bloom? What are the 3 teams for Beckham? Packers, Saints, Chiefs. And Chiefs. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Odell Beckham Jr. not there yet. Not that he would play anyway if he got picked up. But either way, New Orleans lacks some punch because they lack a quarterback.
Yeah, and you're wondering what's going on here because you have, by the way, 8-6-1. The Tennessee Titans / Houston Oilers lead this, but going back to 2007, they've split the last 4, and the last one was a 38-28 Saints comeback. They were down 14-0 early in that one. So the Saints' response, is it Taysom Hill starting, or is it Trevor Siemian, or is it some sort of 2-quarterback system? Knowing Sean Payton, we're not going to know, right? We're going to find out when we watch the game, which is tough. And maybe we'll hear Hill announced as a starter if you can put him in your lineup. But I think we're going to see more of Taysom Hill, which should help the passing game. Now, the Saints worked out 3 running backs this week, and they signed Josh Adams to the practice squad. But Nick Underhill, and really, I mean, there's Jeff Duncan and Nick Underhill, basically, if you're talking about Saints sources, like people we trust.
Duncan is an Audible alum.
Right. So Nick Underhill said, hearing murmurs that Kamara is banged up. So this could be a Mark Ingram week, especially if Taysom Hill's in there, because I think that makes the running game front forward, and it makes it tougher to defend Ingram. Ingram looks good. So this could be a big Mark Ingram week. Remember, 17 touches for Kamara and 14 for Ingram last week. So we're back to the old Kamara-Ingram split. And then nobody in the passing game. Nobody. And it's a matchup, the Titans matchup. Well, see, that's the thing, right? Like last year, early this year, Titans matchup's a good matchup. Get your players in against the Titans. But look what they did to Matthew Stafford last week. Look, they were the ones that really unmasked Patrick Mahomes, right? Maybe this is a good matchup. As it is, there's nobody you're playing in the Saints passing game anyway. And then we'll see if Odell Beckham gets added to it and comes back down to Louisiana.
We'll see what the Titans can continue on this hot streak. And hell, all 3 of your backs are RB3 flex plays, honestly. Maybe what the heck flex for Dante Foreman, whatever. But, okay, A.J. Brown, yes. Ryan Tannehill, yes. And littering and fantasy GMs are wondering, will they ever get anything from Julio Jones? But either way, I don't care. It's at home. Those 3 backs are interesting. Tennessee's an exciting team, man. They're exciting because they don't DG. They DGAF. Right? That's sorry, Joe, whatever, YouTube, whoever. Like, they do not give a flying, you know what. So, yeah, I kind of like watching that with Mike Vrabel and company.
Yeah, and Zara, sorry, we just got to talk so I can make sure I can say your name correctly. Sorry, Kansabedian, I think. It's ZAREHKFF. Great follow on Twitter. Great fantasy football stuff. He says, I'm adding the Titans defense, right? That's where we've come full circle. See, now you're playing the Titans defense.
Right, exactly. By the way, just a great person. Who gives a crap about Twitter? Great person. Yeah,
totally. But his work is great. And by the way, you want to pick up the Tennessee defense this week because they play Houston next week. So, yeah, I think that go ahead and get a 2-for there. Ryan Tannehill, whatever. This team is so resilient, right? They're so adaptable. They roll with the punches. Of those 3 running backs, you mentioned these Foreman, Peterson, McNichols. I think it's a McNichols game. The Saints are kind of like the Bucs. Like, just don't bother running on them. Don't bother trying. Now, we'll see whether the Titans actually adopt that as a strategy, or they say that we're the Titans, we're going to run the ball.
Don't they tempt fate that way, though? Don't they do the latter? Don't they be like, this is what we do? This is
it's true.
You're great. Like, it's like the Alex Collins games against the Steelers, right?
Yeah.
Or hell, even the Broncos when they played the Steelers and like, oh, don't run on the Broncos. Harris had 100 yards. Alex Collins had 100 yards. Like, yeah,
it's true.
I think that's Tennessee's way.
It's true. But I do think if you're going to put a chip on any of the three, it's McNichols, because I think you'll be more in the pass mode. Marshawn Lattimore maybe covering A.J. Brown. I still think that you're sticking with A.J. Brown. He had a ton of targets last week, just had some drops. Maybe it's a Julio game. Julio, it's a sad moment. We say, Julio, what the heck, flex? Kind of hopefully. Yeah. But I mean, this could be a Julio game because of that. I don't think you're going to see them using Lattimore to lock down Julio. Josh Reynolds was granted his release, by the way. So maybe Josh Reynolds got the memo, Cecil, that you're talking about. We're still going to run the ball, no matter what. And Josh Reynolds says, can I go somewhere else? So we'll see. But Tennessee, in this year 2021 NFL season, Tennessee, like so many other teams, having catastrophic injuries, having these wild swings in some of their games, and also starting out the season just getting thumped by Arizona at home. It's all behind them now. And this team has to feel emotionally, psychologically, spiritually ready for anything. So I think they'll be ready for the Saints.
Can we just keep talking about Saints and Titans? Because it's Jacksonville Indy up next. And I'm like, I mean, what? Yeah. Dan Arnold? Okay, Dan Arnold. James Robinson should be back. Trevor Lawrence is okay. And he'll be even better when Urban Meyer's gone. These are the jokes, fellas and ladies. But Jacksonville Indy first. Let's talk Jaguars side.
Yeah, 25-15, by the way, the Colts. A lot of that's the Peyton Manning era, right? I mean, they just fattened up on the Jags during the Peyton Manning era. But actually, the Jags have won 7 of the last 11 against the Colts. It's AFC South. So no matter what the records are, etc., these teams know each other. But this is the Urban Meyer Jags. They should get James Robinson back, and if he's back, he should be in your lineup. The best options for fantasy are Jamal Agnew and Dan Arnold in the passing game. Maybe it's a Trevor Lawrence game if you want to throw a Hail Mary in DFS, but I don't think so. The Colts defense isn't a defense that we're scared of, but at the same time, the Jags offense can't get that engine to turn over. They don't have that Jeep engine, Cease. So, it's a great win. They got the Josh Allen game last week. We'll see if they resume going back to being a little sister, little brother in their division, or maybe they give the Colts, they should consider themselves still alive, still a contender. The way they've played some very good teams this year, they should take, if they can make the playoffs, into any playoff matchup and feel some sense of confidence. And even though we might say, Cease, Carson Wentz isn't the answer, Jonathan Taylor's the answer, Michael Pittman's the answer, and Jonathan Taylor right now is saying, like, yes, play some cover 2 against us. Yes, cover 2. Lots of cover 2. That's absolutely how to beat us. Yes.
Right. Middle field open, middle field closed, doesn't matter. Just give it to Jonathan Taylor because he will smash the box and then get the yards. And that's kind of the thing. Get to the playoffs, Bloom, and then forget that Carson Wentz is your QB. Just go with Taylor.
Is Nick Foles available?
I know. Exactly. Wouldn't that be poetic, right? So, here comes Nick Foles, everybody, to save the day. But the Indy side, as you mentioned, Bloom, it's pretty simple. Maybe a tight end gets like a touchdown, right? If you want to throw a dart to Jet Doyle or whoever at tight end. I think, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, didn't they have like a lineman score, right?
Danny Pinter.
Yeah. And then I was listening to the game because I was driving somewhere. And the announcer was like, Kylan Granson. I was like, they're getting everybody involved.
Yeah,
and
even he got a catch.
Yeah, he just miscalled it. It wasn't Kylan Granson with the touchdown. But I was like, it's everybody at tight end. So, yeah, throw a dart if you want. I don't really want to. But it is Jacksonville, Bloom, so let's go.
Yeah, I think that this is offense. They have their triplets, if you will, with Wentz and Taylor and Pittman. And I don't even know who else. Zach Pascal. I don't know if T.Y. Hilton's going to be back on the field. That's okay. I think the interesting story here is the Colts, and they've had some tangles with really good teams that they haven't come out on top. But just like last week against the Jets, they've taken care of business against the bad teams. The Jags are probably still a bad team, even though they beat the Bills, who we thought were a good team.
Whew. This next one is complicated for multiple reasons, mainly because of the COOF list. It's Cleveland and New England. And the Cleveland side is like, okay, who's going to play? And how do they respond without Odell Beckham Jr.? Now, we've seen this before, Bloom. We've seen Von Miller leave the Broncos and they play outstanding, right? We've seen these situations where John Gruden's removed and then the Raiders play outstanding. It didn't happen with the Henry Ruggs thing. But either way, how does Cleveland respond without Odell Beckham Jr.? Unfortunately, I don't think Nick Chubb's going to play. Again, we're recording Wednesday morning. He needs 2 negative tests within 48 hours or whatever the policy is to get back out there. So we'll talk about whether it's Dearness Johnson. We know that Demetric Felton's also on the COOF list as well. They did add Brian Hill. I saw our guy, Wyoming Cowboys, baby. Always rooting for Brian Hill, no matter where he lands. So the Cleveland side, Bloom, it's very interesting because we're not sure who's playing.
Right. On both sides, right? In the backfield. 13-12 is the current status of this, and it includes the Browns, the first version of the Browns. And I found this one really interesting. Browns are ahead 13-12 in the series. I found this one really interesting, Cease, because during the Belichick era of the Patriots, remember Belichick was also the head coach of the Browns, right? So we can even talk about Belichick in this series, right? Because as head coach of the Patriots, Belichick has actually beaten the Browns 7 out of 9 times. But Belichick was the coach of the Browns from 91 to the end, right? He was the last coach of the old Cleveland Browns, right? And they actually played every year. And guess what? Belichick actually dominated that side of it too. But he did, including a playoff win over the Patriots. But he did lose that last matchup, 17-14. But while he was the coach of the Browns, it was 4-2, including a playoff win. Here's where it gets really interesting, Cease. Because I like this new feature because it allows me to bring up some names. Okay, names we haven't thought about for a while. So the last time the Browns beat the Patriots, their quarterback, Colt McCoy.
I like that name.
The touchdown scorers, Peyton Hillis and Chancey Stuckey. And you know who the quarterback was the first time they beat the Patriots in the Bill Belichick era? Doug Peterson.
Very good.
Lots of interesting stuff here. Also, by the way, 7-2 is the Patriots record against the Browns in the Bill Belichick era, but they've only played 9 times since the year 2000. What does that tell you? They're never, ever, because the Patriots win the division every year, they never have a matchup with the Browns. The Browns don't win the division, right? So anyway, fascinating game here too, because this is a game where, again, these teams that have survived a lot, teams that have reinvented themselves, teams that are evolving, teams that are overcoming adversity, and both of these teams that applies to, and that makes them dangerous if they can get to the playoffs. And the outcome of this matchup may well decide which one of these teams can get to the playoffs. Maybe but they both can, maybe neither will. The Browns are relaxed now, right? You can feel it. They're relaxed. And they had a really big win over the Bengals last week. So with Nick Chubb on the COOF list, again, it's Wednesday, but not yet this year, I think, has a player gone on the list during the week. And he's vaccinated, so he needs 2 negative tests in a 24-hour period. So let's just pencil in no Chubb for this one. Dearness Johnson, as of right now, has not been put on the COOF list, even though 3 of the players in the running back room were. So that's a decent sign that it's going to be Johnson. And you think that Johnson's going to have success because he meshes so well with the system. But maybe it is more of a Jarvis Landry game who's banged up. Maybe it's a Donovan Peoples-Jones game. Maybe it's Hooper and Njoku and Bryant. Maybe it's the tight ends. But probably, sees what it's going to be is an ugly offensive game.
Yeah, probably.
This is not going to be a high-scoring game. It could come down to a defensive score or a special teams score or miscue. I think you're looking at a low-scoring, tight-to-the-vest game.
Tight to the vest game, which means what for the Patriots assets that you weren't really starting anyway, or you're not necessarily excited to be starting, and your team's on bye. Chicago, Cincinnati, you've got some assets. Giants, a couple assets. The Texans, not really. So it's not like you're missing anybody this week, Bloom. Maybe if you got some Bengals, but like the New England side, okay, ugly, low scoring, grind it out. The backfield's kind of the mystery, but what? You know what I mean? It's like mystery box, and then you open it up, and it's a turd, right? Like,
yeah,
okay.
Right. It's the dog poop on fire, and
it's a turd in a punch bowl, right? What is Jared Leto, my coworker, like sending me weird stuff in a box? Yeah, okay. If it's low scoring and ugly and nasty and dirty, like we think it will be, doesn't mean you'll start a bunch of Patriots.
No, it doesn't mean. Maybe Brandon Bolden, right? Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, both left with concussions, and, well, we don't know if we're going to see them. Let's watch what the Patriots do with their practice squad spots to maybe get a clue. You're not trusting anybody in this passing game. And look, the Cleveland secondary had their best game of the year last week. Denzel Ward with the 99-yard touchdown return, the other A.J. Green making plays, Greg Newsome shutting down Jamar Chase. Yeah. This secondary is hot right now, and it ain't like the Patriots present challenges in the secondary. The other thing is, Mac Jones, meet Myles Garrett, because every defensive player in the league, I don't care if the league punished Mac Jones. I don't care what the fine was. I don't care if they suspended him. I don't care if they hurt his feelings. The defensive players around the league saw that play, Cecil. And I mean, I don't want to say it's going to be fun because that maybe implies, I don't know. Because I don't know if Mac Jones intended to injure Brian Burns, but I know what he did is a dirty play that doesn't belong on a football field. There's a reason you've never seen a quarterback who just got knocked down and lost the ball, grab the guy who knocked him down and twisted his leg. I mean, maybe, it was on the ground. That's the only way I could have tackled him. So Myles Garrett.
Mac Jones is going to get it.
He's going to get it week in, week out. Week in, week out. Jadeveon Clowney, Sheldon Richardson.
I'm wearing this shirt for a reason, Bloom. This is House of Chingasos.
Oh.
So you know what Chingasos is?
No, educate me.
Fight.
Oh.
House of Fight. It's a fighting
ding,
house.
Yeah.
House of Chingasos. Put them up, Mac Jones, because you called the dogs on you.
Yeah, you did. You sure did, speaking of the dog pound. So maybe even the Cleveland defense this week. This is a great playoff simulation game. It really is. As you know, I just think that these are teams that have found a way to win, or at least found a way to be competitive. And I think this, even though it won't be a good game for fantasy, will be a really entertaining game to watch.
Entertaining game to watch. A good game for fantasy and entertaining game to watch. Well, one side of it, Buffalo and the Jets up next, and Buffalo humiliated by Jacksonville. Can't even get a touchdown against the Jags. Now it's the Jets, and they're plucky. And who was it earlier in the chat room? I want you to reveal yourself that you said Magic Mike White at QB. But let's talk about Buffalo first, because it's going to be interesting, right? Okay, are you going to keep going shotgun and then not wanting to dink and dunk, although you might need to dink and dunk? Will you go under center? Will you just run the damn ball? You have to do something different. Right. Buffalo, the Jets are plucky. And the Jets smell blood in the water. You just lost to the Jaguars. Now, this should be a big game for Buffalo. Buffalo should kick the shut your mouth out of them, okay? And that was shut your mouth YouTube algorithm. It's not for kids. So Buffalo should do it, Bloom.
Right.
You should.
Question mark?
Bills, but you got
question mark? Right. And the real question here is, this is like a game in September, and this is what week 9 did to us. This is what weird week 9 did to us. Usually in September, we're just learning, so everything that happens recontextualizes what happened the week before. So we're looking at last week. Josh Allen's a variance quarterback anyway, right? Maybe it was just a Josh Allen variance game. I don't know, but maybe the Jags did figure something out here. Maybe they did that cover 2 shell and asking Josh Allen to be patient and disciplined instead of asking him to go out there and barnstorm. So let's talk about this from a fantasy perspective. If you think that the Jets are going to copycat what the Jags did and give the same challenge to Josh Allen, it's probably a Cole Beasley game. Maybe it's a Devin Singletary game, too. Remember, Zach Moss left with a concussion. Maybe it's a Devin Singletary game anyway. Either way, if the offense is working, it's a Devin Singletary game. But if they're forcing Josh Allen to be patient and maybe running the ball more, remember that long touchdown that Singletary had was a run with Josh Allen under center. So maybe we see a little more of that in this game. If you think it was just variance, if you think, it's Josh Allen, you're going to need a game or two like that a year. Then it's a Stephon Diggs and then Emmanuel Sanders game. And you saw how easy it came for the Colts against the Jets last week. Also need to know that Dawson Knox is going to be back for this one, expected to return to practice. Of course, you're going to throw him in. So I know you're wondering. 65-56 is the all-time record in this one with the Bills in the lead. But they've split the last 10. That's surprising, right? Think about the Bills and the Jets over the last 5 years. that they've split the last 10 games, but the Bills have won the last 3 at the Jets. So the Jets, hey, look, they've beaten the Bengals and the Titans, so they should feel like they can hang.
Jets can hang, and if the Jets do hang, Bloom, that's better for the Bills.
Yeah.
Or you could get bored. Hey, we're up by 21. Let's just whatever. Let's coast. Like, no, if the Jets with Magic Mike White do put up that fight, and Ty Johnson gets like 8 catches, and Michael Carter gets 8 catches, and 15 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown, whatever. Like, he's got the explosive playmaking capability that you want to keep feeding him the rock no matter what the game situation is. So with your Jets, you're actually kind of rooting for them to put up a fight, especially if you start them in fantasy.
Yes. And this is what we wanted, right? Mike White as the starter. It's going to be great for Michael Carter and Ty Johnson as receivers out of the backfield. Carter ahead of Johnson, but Johnson at least a what-tech flex, and Elijah Moore. And maybe even Jamison Crowder. But you know that this pass offense should be in that fantasy bonanza mode because the defense, now granted, the one pitfall here is if the defense actually frustrates Josh Allen again this week like the Jags did, it may lead into a low-scoring game. Because the Bills have a sort of bend but don't break defense of their own. And they'll give Mike White a test. Remember, Tua Tagovailoa was doing great until he faced the Bills. And then we saw the limitations of his game. So maybe we'll see some limitations here. We'll see. Time will tell. But you do like these pieces of the Jets offense, including Mike White, really. And it certainly makes the game a more interesting matchup with Mike White on the field and much more interesting for fantasy.
Much more interesting for fantasy. And, doesn't Elijah Moore make everything better?
Oh, yeah. More.
You're like Kylo Ren and that god-awful Last Jedi. He's shooting at Luke Skywalker. More Elijah Moore. How about more of the Audible Week 10 preview, part 1, and it is Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom talking about Detroit and Pittsburgh. Detroit side,
Yeah.
Bueller.
I got a lot to talk about with the Detroit-Pittsburgh history.
Okay, that's probably going to be more interesting than the Detroit side.
It definitely is, Cease. It definitely is. There's some layers to this one, right? Because these are original franchises. The Lions and the Steelers. The actual series here is 17-14-1 Pittsburgh. Okay. But the Steelers have won 9 of the last 10. Do you know what the one that they didn't win was? Can you remember it, Cease? Heads, tails.
Oh, God. That was annoying.
That was the last time the Lions beat the Steelers.
You want to talk about indigestion on Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Oh, that screwed Thanksgiving.
Oh, man.
I was so mad.
But the city of Detroit made it up to Pittsburgh because, of course, that's when the Steelers won the first Super Bowl since the Steel Curtain era in Pittsburgh. And
because they bought the reps, right, Seahawks fans?
Right, Bears fans? So... Anyway, also in the illustrious history, does the name Bobby Lane mean anything to you? Remember, Bobby Lane won. He won championships with the Lions, and the Steelers had just traded 2 first-round picks for Earl Morrall, and then they turned around and traded Morrall for Bobby Lane. Bobby Lane didn't do as much with the Steelers. The best they ever did with Bobby Lane as their quarterback was second. I don't think they even made the playoffs with him. Earl Morrall, on the other hand, Cease, went on to win the 68 championship, the Super Bowl, with the Colts, and was the MVP of the league. Also, before Doug Flutie and Vinny Testaverde, he was the oldest quarterback to start and win a game in the NFL. So Earl Morrall, Bobby Lane, a walk down memory lane. Because, you're going to play TJ Hawkinson. You're going to play DeAndre Swift. You expect this to be a garbage time game. Or you expect, is this the game maybe when Detroit coming out of the bye says Jared Goff's 3 steps out on the plank? I don't know. But I know the interesting history of this game. We'll see if somehow Detroit can sneak up on Pittsburgh any given Sunday. I doubt it.
Yeah, let's talk about the Steelers side. That's way more interesting, Bloom. Way more interesting than anything. So Steelers side it is, and Najee Harris, just continue, please. And against the Lions, everyone should be able to eat. Everyone that's healthy, that is.
Yeah. Well, Chase Claypool with that toe, MRI. So we'll see. It could be James Washington week. It's going to be a big Najee Harris week, probably a solid Deontay Johnson week. There's no way you're going away from Pat Freiermuth. You got to love our Steelers fan base. We have our comfort.
Ebron returns to practice this week.
Yeah, so I know. But I still think it's Muth because in the red zone, Ben knows that Freiermuth is going to make that play. And history repeating itself, right? So we even looked at Freiermuth before the Steelers drafted him and said that's a Heath Miller kind of player. Just like Heath Miller, they draft him at a later position than he should have been there because of his injury. And he comes right out there and he's making plays. So that has worked out for the Steelers. Harris and Muth. It's not quite Pittman and Taylor, but we'll take it. It's something moving this offense forward, moving this team forward. Is there yet another team sees trying to say we can win ugly? That's our calling card. That's what we do, and that's what you have to do to win in the playoffs. They're going to beat probably an ugly team this week.
Ugly away. And I took my sunglasses off so people know I'm not stoned. I know it's Colorado. I remember when I was in New York City for the draft, so that tells you how long ago it was. And somebody, I don't know why, said something about Colorado. They're like, "Are you high?"
On life.
Yes, exactly. On Mountain Air? I don't know. So, and where's our man Jason from Greeley? Why is he working so much? Like, why you got to do that, man? Like, supposed to take your time.
His job was DFS
and enjoy. Maybe he's having a bad year, right? Yeah. DFS and Mountain Dew, slushies, and fried Oreos, and all that kind of good stuff. We need you guys in the chat room to do a couple things. One, love us. Please love us. That's really all we're here for, Bloom, right? The validation of like, hey, people like us. That's kind of cool. Right. Hey, we appreciate you guys for commenting. I know you've commented in the chat room, but make sure to comment in the comment section as well. Helps out the ever elusive YouTube algorithm, and gets us in front of new people and recommended videos and all those sorts of things. So like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid, and check out all of our content here on our YouTube channel. We're youtube.com/footballguys. Got some outstanding shows. Mailbag show coming up later tonight. Dave Kalugi and company getting it done at the highest level. So make sure to check out Mailbag Show. That's very popular. Get it done. IDB Blitz coming up later today, Bloom. That'll be spectacular. Of course, on the couch yesterday. Our preview shows, Dynasty Newsletter, Dynasty Show, bunch of great shows. Also, we have our DFS show, The Power Grid, that comes out on Friday, late Thursday night if you're a night owl like me. Although I woke up feeling refreshed, Bloom. Great. Can't believe it. I was like,
Waking up with Cecil Lammey this week.
I'm actually awake doing the show.
That's good. And you're in a good mood.
Man. I'm in a mood, all right. That's right. The mood to
put it on your business card, Cecil.
Talk football with you, right?
I'm in a mood.
I'm in a mood. That's right. My business card right here. Oh, whoops. Hey. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
There's my business card.
Is that the farm truck? Is that the ranch truck?
That's my Smoking Gun. See, Smoking Gun Comics, that's Smoking Gun Studios for you. Smoking Gun's named after my truck because I drove it for a semester without a water pump. So everywhere Big E and I went, like the steam would just roll out.
Right.
And it looked like the truck was on fire. We'd stop at a stoplight and we'd just be sitting there all embarrassed, and people would be like, "Your truck's on fire." I'd be like, "I know." It never let me walk though. The Smoking Gun, it never let me walk, but it was always there. Speaking of good engines, that old 351 modified. That's right. Anyway, we'll get back at it tomorrow morning, and we are here for you. Follow Sigmund Bloom on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. Everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned, and as always, stay frosty.